have electronic signatures and you want an email already in the file. So let's call his email.
Oh, so this is gonna populate throughout the.
We
all
just
the
had
documents.
that.
Exactly. Oh, you know what?
We just had that.
She's getting it. Okay, thank you.
See, you just messed up.
You know I'm a newbie.
And then if you make a mistake on that, like one time I
Uh-huh.
put the wrong email, oh my
Mhm.
God.
All right, just pay attention.
I'm trying
John
to think of
Smith?
my questions in between.
At gmail.com. All right, so that's all I'm gonna add for Mr. John Smith. If you wanna add any more information on there, by all means, go ahead and do so. The rest of the information does not populate with the documentation. All right, in this case, we're representing the buyer. We still don't know what the seller information is. It really doesn't matter because this is a purchase agreement, not a listing. Right? So we're gonna go to page number 2 of the cover sheet and we are going to enter the property address. So it was 1234 Main Street. City, Palmdale. Township, doesn't matter. County, it does. Los Angeles. State, California. Zip code 93550. Legal description, that is for escrow. Tax ID number, we don't have one. It's not a corporation, right? But we do have an assessor's parcel number. What is the assessor's parcel number?
Oh, I don't know that. Oh, I mean, I know what that means, but I was
Okay,
gonna
what-
say.
The counties, how they,
Say it again?
the counties
The
number?
legal description.
You guys are both on the same track, okay? So the assessor's parcel number is a number that is assigned to every property in existence that identifies that property. How does the APN work? Okay, so let me go to the internet.
Does that information, if you pop in the MLS number, did all that information populate in on the cover letter?
No, I'm actually entering it myself. 'Cause
Okay.
I'm trying to show you guys to
Oh.
work it
He's doing.
correctly, okay? APN number. Okay?
Yeah.
So what does Google Maps say about the assessor's parcel number? The assessor's parcel, I'm sorry. How many assessor, what is an, okay, there it is. An assessor's parcel number is a series of 14 numbers or digits that are used as a file number to inventory or identify the property. I just said that, right? It's an identification number for a property. So everybody in here has at least a social security number or some sort of identification number, right? Yes?
Correct.
Yes. So your social security number never changes. You're right? Brandon cannot use Tanya's and Tanya's cannot use Brandon's, right? Because then Brandon would be Tanya. Right? And back and forth, right? Or what, vice versa. So your social security number is never going to change. A property APN never changes also. Okay? That's how it is identified. Now, each section of the APN, because it's divided into sections or hyphenated in LA County, has a purpose. Okay? So let me show you what an APN looks like. Right there. Okay? So 5560003. What does this mean? Book number is the first part. What are we talking about here? The county assessor's office has a book of all the properties in the state. Okay? So if you want to find your property in the county's information, they're going to go to book number 5560, page number 003, and look for lot number 003. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So the APN, whenever you're going to, for example, the county to try to find out information, yeah, they're going to ask for your address, but when they try to dig into the property, they're going to actually use this number. Okay? So this is a very important key number to a transaction. Once you open escrow and escrow takes this number and does a search, they now use this. And for my students from real estate school, you guys don't know what the heck I'm talking about. This is now the legal description. They do not, in legal documents, the address is not used. Okay, so whenever you get into escrow and you see an escrow package that includes the escrow instruction, The escrow instruction describes the property by the title, property legal description. And this is what it used. For example here, it commences at the northeast corner of the east half of west half of northeast quarter of southwest quarter of section 17, township number 1, north range 12, west and run south at 0 degrees, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah,
What does all this mumbo jumbo mean? It means your ex. Right? It means you're at 1401 West Rancho Vista. Right? So this is for legal purposes, right? Because title will vest it off of the APN and obviously the legal description. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Tanya? Any questions?
No, I don't.
You're like, oh my goodness.
I have that, so I know that. That's
Okay,
something.
perfect. Yeah, you're a homeowner, so yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go back to zip forms. So, you gotta add a... So now we have an APN, okay? So we have the property address and the APN. It says here, listing date. What kind of contract are we putting together?
RPA.
An RPA. What does RPA stand for?
Residential purchase.
Purchase agreement. So what would a listing date apply to then?
Not an RPA.
Exactly. What? So if it doesn't apply to the RPA, then it applies to what?
Listing agreement.
The listing agreement, right? So if we're working on the RPA, we don't have to worry about any listing information. Does that make sense? Okay? So we keep moving on down, and now we go back to what? A purchase price. So if you're making a purchase, it would be associated with what? The purchase agreement, right? So in this case, let's say that we're going to make a purchase of $389,987. Just give it an odd number, okay? Purchase agreement date. If you click on this and you double click, it gives you today's date, okay? Closing date, I leave it blank because I'm actually going to enter actual calendar days, okay? Deposit amount. What is a deposit in a transaction?
Earnest money. Good
The
faith.
earnest money deposit, what is it used for?
Skin in the game.
Exactly. It's skin in the game, right? So if I have a property listed and you as the buyer want me to put that property pending, well, give me some collateral, right? You want me to avoid marketing this property to other people, you gotta put some skin in the game, right? And the deposit is part of that skin in the game. Now, the deposit is part of what?
The offer.
No.
Right, the offer,
The down
but
payment.
Deposit the down payment.
the down payment, right? It's a portion of the down payment. And I'll get more into detail as we get to that part. So let's say we're gonna do a $3,000 deposit, right? How do I figure what percentage I'm gonna put as a deposit? I take the total down payment, depending on what they're offering, and I just use a third of that money as a deposit. Okay, so let's say that my deposit was 10 grand, right? What's a third of 10? About 36, 3,700 bucks, somewhere in that area, maybe a little bit less, right? Just use a third, right? Okay, deposit amount increase, we're not gonna talk about that right now. Offer date, today's date. This is the only information that I'm going to put here now. Because this is the only information that's gonna populate with the rest of my documents. Okay, so move on down. Escrow information is for your own notes. Buyer's broker information. Who is that?
Us.
You. Okay, so in this case, who is the broker? Keller Williams Realty AB Antelope Valley. Okay, our address is 1401 West Rancho Vista Boulevard, number B, or Suite B. I'll do Suite. Some people use a suite, some people don't. Okay, that is, we are in Palm Dizzle, California, 93551.
Diesel.
Selling office DRE license. Who is the selling office? And why is it the selling office? Why are they using the word selling and we're representing the buyer?
Cause
Selling the property.
the,
Yeah,
where
right?
it comes from, right?
So here's the thing, I'm the listing agent. I'm the one that's putting it on the market, right? I'm listing it for the seller.
Correct.
Whoever brings the buyer is selling that property to the buyer. So they become the selling agent. So whenever you see the abbreviation SA, that means selling agent. When you see the abbreviation LA, that means listing agent, okay? So if you're the one working with the buyer, guess what? You're the selling agent. Okay, so our broker license is 01378477. Okay? Telephone number 661-538-2800. Buyer's name, buyer's agent's name. My name is Jorge E. Perez. My license 019219. Oh, que la 1907, right? Agent's phone number 661-492-9992. Fax number, I don't have one. Cell phone number. Email jperez661@gmail.com. So now I've entered all the information to myself and my brokerage. I don't know, or let's say that I did know the information to the seller side, you always want to enter it out of courtesy. Okay? It's not mandatory, but it's more professional. So how do you find out? Very simple.
It's on the MLS.
Exactly. Right? So let's go to Flex. Oops.
See how time consuming it is?
A whole different from
No. But once you get all this in, then just.
So let's take one of my listings. We'll do filtering.
You brought your fan.
Mm-hmm. I told you.
Actually, no, because I'm already the selling agent. So let's do active listings. Let's see what's on the hot sheet. New listings. All right, let's use this one. So here, we're right here in the middle. It says listing information, right? So we're gonna do West Coast Realty. Copy.
Could we not just put in the address at the top? Could you not just put the address at the top
What are you talking about?
to find that, the information that you're looking for, the seller's broker's information for that particular property?
I'm completely confused as to what you're saying.
So you were looking for the seller's information, right?
I'm looking for the listing member information, the broker, right there.
Right, so I thought that if.
Seller's broker information.
So I thought that if you went to that particular address that's for sale,
Right.
then you can just.
But I made up an address.
Oh, well, right.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
But in the instance that I'm speaking of.
You know what? You just gave me a good idea. Let's do this. So we're gonna do this property. Copy. Cal City.
Don't let me forget to show you that video all the time. Okay.
Cal City. Boom. So let's actually use the actual. And as you can see, there's less numbers on this one. Why?
Different county.
County. Okay, this is Kern County.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I typically use the MLS Connect.
You too,
Okay.
but this is a class.
Okay.
And I need you to learn the basics and fundamentals.
Got it.
Yeah, Jorge.
All right. Keep your secrets to yourself, Cecilia. All right, so now we gotta enter the seller's broker's information, okay? So what, we go back to the listing. West Coast Realty, copy. And if I need to get any additional information on her, boom, I just click on her name. And this one. Oh, I thought it was a girl.
Musa.
Musa. Never heard that name before.
I had first word about it.
That's too much work.
Welcome to real estate, Carmen.
Wouldn't it be easier to just print the thing and then from there you
You
type
can do
it?
whatever you want, as long as it gets done.
I get lost in the going back and forth, so I
That's
tried
fine.
it.
Whatever works for you. So we'll do 0, 0, 0, 0,
Yeah,
1.
I would probably print it out. I would probably print it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to use.
To see his,
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's all I'm putting in there. Okay? All right, so now that I have all this information, title, I'm not putting it in there, I'm not putting that, I'm not putting that because it doesn't populate. Right? Now I go to my forms up here. You see this blue, it's highlighted in blue, and it brings up any forms that are in that transaction. Click on residential purchase agreement,
save it.
and that brings up the packet. Okay, so the packet, the residential purchase agreement it's combined. It has a whole bunch of documents combined that we're going to review. The first document you're going to see here is your disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. So always remember, for my students from real estate school, who does a client belong to according to the Department of Real Estate?
The broker.
Broker. Okay. According to the Department of Real Estate, the person that you are working with belongs to the broker, not the agent. The agency relationship allows you, the agent, to work on behalf of the broker as a representative of this client. Okay? So let's say that Brandon is working with Yvonne as the client, right? And then Yvonne has it with Brandon, and they're just like clack, 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 going at it. Yvonne calls our broker, who is now Drew, right? Drew, I don't want to work with Brandon anymore. I need you to cancel my contract, blah, 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 blah. And then Drew's like, you know what, Yvonne? I'll tell you what. Let me do something better for you. Let me find you a new agent, right? And then he goes to Tanya and said, Tanya, I got a little bit of a situation here. I got a client that's a little bit mad. Do you want to take over the file? Tanya will say, what? What?
Of course.
There you go. Never say no to business. Right? Especially free business. Right? So now this document allows the broker to assign a bond to Tanya. Why? Because the agency belongs to who?
The
The
broker.
brokerage. Okay? I'm going to run through these documents, these first documents, briefly. I want you guys to read them if you haven't done so. You want to learn contracts? It's very easy. Come to my class and read the documents. That's all you got to do. Okay? Next document is going to be your Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory, better known as the FHDA. As you guys see, every document has an acronym, right? So if you needed to look, let's say I go to Form Libraries and I need to find the commission agreement. Commission, there it is, right? But let's say that I did not know what the commission agreement, or I only knew the commission agreement by the acronym, CA, right? And it brings anything up under CA, and there it is, right? Or let's say that I actually want to look up for the SPQ. It brings me up the SPQ. Or I could put just questionnaire, or whatever word you want to use to see if the document is in the list. Okay? So Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory is simply an advisory, right there, right? Stating that we are not going to discriminate against anybody in this transaction for whatever reason that is listed on this form. Okay? Simple explanation of that. The way I'm explaining the documents to you, I explain them to my clients. I don't sit there line by line. I said, Mr. Buyer, this document means this. Do you have any questions? No, great, we're gonna move on. We got baseball players? Kids are wearing uniform, they're wearing costumes.
Do you tell them to read it when
Yes.
they get home?
Yes, they're gonna get a copy of it. And here's the thing, I'm gonna recommend for them to read it, do their own due diligence, I'm not gonna force them.
Right.
It's a buyer or seller has responsibilities as much as a broker. Whatever broker they're working with, right? You have another question, Tanya?
What do you say when if they ask you if you can, explain it to them?
Then I'll give them an explanation, but I'm not gonna sit there for 3 hours explaining documents.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask. So if they're literally those type of anal people that are like, well, can we go line by line? I mean, would you do it, or would
No,
you
no,
would
I
just
say, you know what, if you wanna do that, we're gonna be here all night, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller. So
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give you a brief explanation of what these documents are. Once we sign, the system is gonna automatically send you a copy. I would highly advise you to go ahead and read it, and any questions that you might have, just give me a call and I'll explain it to you.
Got it.
Does that sound okay?
Because I
Great.
think it will be animal. If a person is a first time home buyer.
Say it again, Tanya?
Yeah.
I was saying that, some people feel that because, they hired you and so you are the agent, so if they're asking for that, then you know.
So at the end of this contract, it says if you have any questions pertaining to this document, you are more than entitled to hire an attorney for explanation,
Mhm.
right? Our job is to protect the client, right? You're giving them a brief explanation. You're not gonna sit there and read line by line. It's just not something that's smart, right? Your time is limited, and we're in this business to do what? Have multiple clients that we can work with. So imagine if you spend freaking 3 hours talking to a client, that's 3 hours on unproductive activity that you have just wasted. Right? When you could be doing lead generation and finding your next client, whether it's a buyer or seller. Right? So brief explanation is all I do. Possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. This is a disclosure. I'm disclosing to you, Mr. Client, and I'm actually getting your consent with this document. So this is meant for a seller or a buyer. And what this document means that I am now authorized and have the ability to represent multiple buyers, multiple sellers, or doing a dual agency. So multiple buyers mean I have competing buyers after the same house. And I write up an RPA for Yvonne, and I write up one for Ariana. I'm working with both of them. They both want to buy the house. I have 2 buyers, right? Multiple buyers. Multiple sellers means that I put a property for sale, and then the neighbor calls me to see what I listed it for, and said, come sell mine. Now I have 2 listings competing with each other, right? Or dual agency means that I represent both buyer and seller, okay? And when you do that, it's a beautiful thing. Money-wise, because you're making double the commission. That means you're the listing agent. Okay, everybody signs, you move on. Wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory, the WFA, something that is extremely important because you are letting people know that wire fraud is real and it does exist. So I always tell the buyer, Mr. Buyer, if you get notification from anybody during the transaction for you to wire any type of funds, please make sure that you double, triple, quadruple check the information and the source where it is coming from. Wire fraud is real, and hackers do exist, right? I've seen it happen here at this office before with a buyer buying one of our listings. They got jacked for $96,000, and the money was gone, right? Imagine you taking $96,000 out of your pocket and be like, trash, right? That would hurt.
Oh my God.
That would hurt. All right, and then we get into the first page of the actual RPA. The California Residential Purchase Agreement and Joint Escrow Instructions, better known as Form RPA. Okay, this is a 16-page document. Do not be afraid, my friends. It's not as intimidating as it sounds. Oh my God, 16 pages, how am I going to learn this stuff, right? You will, as time goes by. But the most important parts of this contract are page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Why? Because this is where the information to the actual transaction is located. Okay? So as you can see, this thing is pre-filled out. Right? That's why it is important to use what? The cover sheet. It saves you a ton of work. Right? You enter everything into one sheet, boom, everything gets it. Right? So let's go through these sections. So number 1 is the offer part. Okay? It is the information to the buyer and the actual property itself. We prepared this today. This is an offer from John Smith. The property to be acquired is this address in Cal City, Kern County, zip code APN. Can't be clearer than that, right? Simple. Letter C. The terms of this purchase specified below and on the following pages, right? Buyer and seller are referred to herein as the parties. Brokers and agents are not parties to this agreement. Number 2, agency. It talks about who's representing who, right? So this is a disclosure based on that disclosure that we just saw, the first one. Excuse me. The parties each acknowledge receipt of the disclosure regarding real estate agency relationships, card form AD. If represented by a real estate agent and licensee, buyer's agent is not legally required to give the seller's agent the AD form signed by the buyer. It used to be before. They changed it, right, years ago. Seller's agent is not legally obligated to give the buyer's agent the AD form signed by the seller. I've gotten, when I'm representing the seller, or regardless of who I'm representing, I'll get an email from their TC. Hey, can you please send me a copy of your agency? I said, no. She's like, why not? It's required. I said, says who? You? Because that's not what the contract says. Right? You want to learn contracts, read them. Right? You want to make sure you read them. Because people will try to think they're smarter than you.
Yeah.
Right? I had it, one of my mentees, Rudy, we were going through a negotiation stage on a property that she was making an offer on with a buyer. And we get a counter stating that the contingencies would automatically fall off after day 17. And I'm like, what the heck is she talking about? California is an active state, okay, which means that any changes to a contract have to be done in writing. It is not an automatic state. So I called her up. I said, hey, so this doesn't make sense. She said, what do you mean? I said, you're trying to change California state real estate law. She's like, we can do that. I said, that's who? I said, are you the head of car? Or I'm a little bit confused. Right? I said, first of all, to change law, it has to be voted. You're trying to create your own law. I said, California's an active state, and she kept arguing with me. All right, so I ended up calling her broker, and he set her straight. It's like, oh my God, you're trying to argue with the instructor now. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. And not to say that I'm perfect, but come on, I read these
The way
things.
you show delivery, though, golly.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, so confirmation. West Coast Realty is going to represent the seller. Keller Williams Realty AB represents the buyer. But let's say that Musa was actually Keller Williams Realty AB as well. What does that create?
A dual agency.
It creates a dual agency.
Dual agency for the brokerage.
Right there. Why does it create a dual agency?
They're both under the same brokers. The
Because
brokers.
the client belongs to the broker.
Right.
Even though it's different agents, for the brokerage, it's considered a dual agency. Okay? So the brokerage is literally double ending it.
Right.
Not the agents, the brokerage. All right? So you would check that. But in this case,
Why would it be a broker? You could.
we're going to go back to, what was the name of the brokerage?
West Coast, Wills Realty.
Yeah, West Coast. Okay, so far, do you guys understand what we talked about right here in this part of the contract? Okay? All right, so you enter the license number to the appropriate people. Obviously, you did all this information in the cover sheet. Obviously, the cover sheet does not allow you to select who's representing who. That's how you do it here, okay? Letter C, more than one brokerage represents seller or buyer. Additional broker acknowledgement will be required, the ABA. So right now, I'm in a transaction where a friend of mine from Orange County acquired a listing in Lancaster. He put it on his MLS. It sat on the market forever, and he calls me and he's like, bro, I've been on the market for freaking 40 days and I don't have any action. And I said, where's it listed? I said, in my MLS. I said, well, that's why. I said, here's the thing, 90% of the agents that work the Antelope Valley are local agents, and if the property is not shown in our local MLS, they're not gonna see it. They're not gonna spend money to go and become a membership of your association just to see your properties. Doesn't make sense. He's like, so can you put it on the market for me up there? I said, yeah, if you put me on your contract and you give me 50%. And he's like, 50%? I said, bro, I'm gonna be the one doing all the work because they're gonna be calling me.
Right.
I said, all you gotta do literally is freaking sit back and collect a check because I'm gonna have to be the one dealing with all the phone calls and escrow and all that stuff. So 50% or nothing. He's like, I'll take it. Perfect. I said, send me the ABA, the additional broker acknowledgement. So now the seller is working with two brokerages, Keller Williams Realty and Compass. Make sense?
And from that agency agreement, when that seller signed, that's already giving the authority for the agent to do what he just did with you.
Yep.
Got it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Letter D, potential competing buyers and sellers of parties each acknowledge the possible representation of more than one buyer and seller. Self-explanatory, right? Number 3, terms of the purchase and allocation clause. The items in this paragraph are contractually, terms of the agreement, reference paragraphs provide further explanations. So what is that telling you? This form is 16 pages, and anything after page number 4 is where you'll find the explanation by simply searching for this paragraph number. So if you don't understand what the initial deposit A, look for paragraph 5A, number 1, to give you or read upon what that means. That's why it's 16 pages long, because it's explaining what we call the grid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we said that we were going to make a purchase price of $389,987. Our close of escrow will be what?
30 days.
Typically, what I ask for is a 30-day escrow. I always verify with the lender. Hey, Mr. Lender, can you make this happen in 30 days? Sure, you can do it in 21. Okay, boom, 21. Right? But typically, on average, it's going to be 30 days. Right now, because we are now in a buyer's market, it could be a little bit longer because of appraisers, right? Appraisers are taking a little bit longer to appraise properties because they're just so busy. Okay, expiration of offer.
And this one for the examples in Cal City, so they're a longer time frame.
Mhm.
Just based on that, maybe you would say 45, or.
I would talk to the lender. Yeah. Ben, they might have a relationship with a good AMC. What does AMC stand for? Appraisal Management Company.
Okay.
Right? Here's the way the appraisals for my new agents that have no clue what an appraisal is. An appraisal is an inspection that is done, ordered by the bank, that the buyer pays for them to go out to the property and give it value at whatever price you put on that contract. So they'll go, take a look at the condition of the property, make sure that the property is in moving condition. If it's an owner-occupied type loan, what would be an owner-occupied type loan?
FHA.
FHA, right? The most popular loan that we use out here, why? Low down payment, affordability, right? And I'll talk more a little bit about that. So 30 days, again, verify it with the lender. Expiration of offer, it's already set by 3 days. Let's say that Ariana makes an offer on my listing, Brandon is the agent, she submits it on Monday, or Brandon submits it on Monday, I don't make a decision until Thursday. I sign off, we have an executed contract. Is she obligated to move forward?
On what day? What was
On Thursday? No. She submitted it on Monday? No.
No, it's Monday.
It's expired. Right? Now she has a choice, I'm like, nah, I don't want it. Or she has a choice, all right, let's do it. Right? Initial deposit, we said $3,000. So let's see if the math is correct on this, right?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Belen.
Sorry. So if it's executed after the final business day, a new contract has to go through, or is it better just to send a?
No, you can use the same one, as long as the buyer's okay with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so $389,987. Let's say that we're going to be using an FHA loan. What is the down payment for an FHA loan?
3.5?
3.5%. Okay, 3.5, 3.5. So how do we figure what the down payment is going to be?
You multiply it with 3.5%?
Exactly. All you gotta do is a simple multiplication. So you take the offer amount times 3.5% equals your down payment. Okay? So what would be a third of $13,649.55?
Divided by 3. 4,000, about, a little bit over 4,000 and some change.
Divided by 3. So I would put
5,000.
4,500.
Ay, despacio.
Did you get that?
Despacio.
She said despacio. In
I gotta
other
get you a
words,
Red Bull.
What does that mean?
slow your roll.
Slow down.
Oh,
389. Pay attention,
I
Tanya.
am, trust me.
389, 987. This is an FHA loan. FHA loans are always 100% of the time 3.5% down.
Right.
Okay? So how do you figure that out? What is 3.5% of 389,987? So multiply 389,987 times 3.85% equals, that is your down payment, $13,649.55. Okay? How do we find a third of this? Divided by 3. Divide by 3. That gives you 45.49. I just rounded down to 4,500 bucks.
I would go up.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'd say 5,000.
You know what I mean?
I like-
It also depends on how much money your client has available,
I like even numbers.
right? What if they're doing a down payment assistance program? And we'll talk about that. Or they're getting gift money. Talk about that too, right? Okay, so let's say that we're at $4,500, right? How do we find the first loan on this deal? With 3.5% down.
You subtract it from the purchase price, the down payment minus the purchase price.
Yep, exactly. Or what you can do is 389,987 minus 3.5% equals. And there's your first loan. Make sense? Okay, so 376,337, 376,337, how much change? 46 cents.
46 cents.
0.46. That is your first loan. So what is the LTV of an FHA loan?
96.5.
96.5. How do you know that, Brendan?
Because it's minus 3.5%.
Minus 3.5%. So you take 100% value minus 3.5%, which is your FHA down payment, and whatever is left is 96.5. So if you did the math correctly here, and you're doing just a bit minimum 3.5%, this will always give you a 96.5% ratio. That's how you know, oh, my math's correct. All right, that's it, I was off. Just screwed my ratios up. So I know that I made a mistake. Is that making sense? Okay, so let's change it back to 7. It wasn't 7, right? 6. Yes. So my ratio is 96.5. Over at the additional terms, I'm going to disclose that this is an FHA loan and I get the FHA HID bundle automatically added. So whenever you are choosing additional items outside of the default of this contract, it's going to add additional documents, okay, to supplement the items that are going to be needed for this offer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, so now that we know what the down payment is, the system is automatically going to generate the difference of what is owed on that down payment. So if you take this number and add it to the 4,500, it'll give you your 3.5% down. Does that make any sense? Tanya, you look confused like crazy.
She's lost an amount.
It is so
This
simple.
is my first, you know this is my first class.
It is so simple.
Okay, but, yeah, it is, yeah, I get it.
Here's the thing. When you start working with a buyer, you're going to have to submit your contract to me first before you send it to your client. So don't worry about making mistakes. You're going to make them.
Yeah, but
It'll be
I
George's
want to get it down.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be my mistake. Tanya, what are you doing? What's this, George? Oh, yeah, you're right.
Do we submit the RPAs only to you?
Before, if you're in my mentorship program, absolutely it is mandatory.
Okay, and if you're not in your mentorship program,
Then you talk to your broker.
the broker on record here,
It's gonna be,
that would be Josh?
no, it would be Drew. No, Josh is not a broker anymore.
Oh, Drew.
Drew. It was announced this morning in our office meeting. That's why it's so important to go to the office meeting.
And Drew's last name, if you don't mind?
Drew is Hawkins.
Is that the guy that was?
That's my partner.
He's back?
No,
Okay, Drew Hawkins is the broker of record.
he's a broker of record because he's still a licensed broker in the state of California.
Is he the only broker of record for this office?
Mhm.
Okay, that's important to know.
Anybody got change for a 5?
No, sorry.
No. I
What do
haven't
you need?
sold a house
Ten.
yet.
I need a drink.
Right, like I haven't sold a house yet. I have three
Yeah.
singles.
Huh?
I haven't sold a house yet. I don't-
Are you good for a
You want
buck?
just three singles?
Let me borrow just one.
Are you good for a buck?
Right.
Let me borrow just one, so I get
This is my
He wants-
weekly allowance.
He wants
$3 a day. $3. Wow, every 2 days you get to spend $1.
Is class till 3? Yeah. Oh, I'm only for 1.
The broker I worked for that I left, I had to submit my cover sheet, then she'd approve it, then I'd have to submit my RPA, and she'd approve it. It was like micromanaging me to death.
But that's how you learn. That's how I learn.
Thank you, Tanya. I owe you $1. You can go back to my office after class and I'll give it back to you.
Don't worry about it.
I worry.
You're worth a buck.
Here, check this out. So I used to work for this nightclub for years, right?
Chippendales.
And I would have been the #1 dancer. Killing, baby! Yeah, Magic Jorge.
Oh my God.
Anyways, the owner of that establishment, that guy was such a tight ass. Oh my God. I'm not kidding about that, right? But I learned a lot from him. And he told me this once and I never forget it. He's like, George, he's like, when it comes to your money, he's like, you don't have to take care of your dollars. They take care of themselves. You gotta watch those pennies, because those mother effers fall through the cracks. That's what you gotta watch. And he's so right. Right? You gotta know where your money's at. So to me, every penny counts. Right? Escrow. If you close an escrow and when they go to audit the file, if they are off by 1 penny, they can't close it. They gotta find that penny. That's how important it is. Right? So put that in your mind. I never forgotten that. That was 25 years ago.
Wow.
25 years ago, and to this day, I still live by it. Right? It's very important.
And then if the Department of Real Estate audits you and you're not to the penny, they make sure you're to the penny.
There's a problem. Okay. So I'm not gonna get into this additional stuff today. I will eventually, because that is a different loan scenario. I just wanna focus on an FHA loan right now, because that's primarily what you guys are gonna use moving forward. Let's go through the first few pages today. If we have time left, before we get into the explanation, we'll come back and then we'll do like a down payment assistance program.
Ooh,
Okay?
good, yeah.
Because those are coming up rapidly. And in a buyer's market, they are extremely popular. Have you guys ever heard of down payment assistance?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you guys know how that works?
Yes.
Okay. Belen doesn't. Obviously you guys don't, right? Or you ladies. I always say you guys. Right? So down payment assistance, you know what? Screw it, let's do it. Okay.
It's good to know.
So how does the down payment assistance program work? It is a 3-loan structure. There's different kinds. There's CalHAFA, there's LA County Assistance Program, there's different ones, right? It means that the buyer qualified to receive money from the source to use towards their down payment and their closing costs. Okay? So it's 3 loans. They're not free.
Right.
They do carry interest, but it's a very, very low payment. Most of the time, it is, actually 99.9% of the time, it is a silent second, and third. What does that mean? It doesn't appear on title, right? If you ever go to sell that house or refi, guess what?
Cloud.
You have to pay it off, right? I always tell people, if you're gonna keep the house forever, don't worry about it, right? But if you're planning on making moves, you're eventually gonna pay back.
What's the 3 loans? The down payment,
It's
closing
your
costs?
primary loan,
Oh, there.
your down payment, your closing costs. Okay? So let's say that this was a Cal Halfa loan. We click on other, type in Cal Halfa, right? Because we're disclosing. Remember, this business is all about what? Disclosing. Disclosing the information pertaining to the contract. Not over disclosing information that might get you in trouble. Right? What do I mean with that? When they start asking you legal questions. Hey, what about my taxes? What about the... Sorry, I'm not a licensed CPA. I'm not sure. You're gonna have to consult with your CPA. Or they start asking you stuff that is now legally binding. Sorry, you're gonna have to talk to an attorney on that. I'm not a licensed attorney. Do not get into questions that are outside of what you're legally licensed to do, because here's the thing, you will find yourself in front of a judge.
Oh, yeah,
If shit hits the fan, excuse my French, right? If things go bad, and you find yourself in front of a judge and you're at fault, it's not a good spot to be in, right? That goes against your license. What's your number one asset in this business?
Protect your license.
Protect your license, right? So let's say that Cal Halfa loan is an FHA loan as well. It's 3.5% down. So let's limit. We're going to keep this 45. Actually, let's do 2,000 on this. Because the reason a person uses a down payment assistance program is why they don't have the money, right? Money is an issue. They have great credit. They don't have the money. They don't know how to save. So a down payment assistance program is a 3 loan structure, okay? So let's take the 389, 987, multiply it times the 3.5% again, because I don't remember the number. So now we got 13,649.55. So the part where it says additional financed amount, 13,649.55. That's going to be the total of the down payment, right? But we have a $2,000 deposit. That makes it what? 14,640. I'm sorry, 15,649.55, right? That 2,000 just became a number in parentheses. What does that mean? It became a negative number, which means that this money is due back and payable to the buyer at the close of escrow. Does that make sense? We put this at 54 because that penny is bugging the crap out of it.
What are the other two, Cal Halfa and the other two? down?
There's a majority of them. Cal Halfa is the most popular one.
Oh, okay, but I thought you mentioned 3.
Yeah.
That's
There's a program called Los Angeles LA County Down Payment Assistance Program. There's Bank of America has a program that is just strictly theirs. There's different kinds.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're all down payment assistance. Okay. Do you guys understand what I did? What I did here?
Yes.
Explain it to me.
Me? So, starting where? 13,649?
Everything.
So the down payment assistance, you, which was a 3.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you multiplied that, and that's how you came up with the 13,649.
Right.
And then with the down payment assistance, that's where they get credited that $2,000 after.
Well, they get credited the $2,000 because they initially put $2,000 down.
Oh, you're right. That would come from the down
Okay.
payment, and
So
but the down payment assistance is what came in
It's going
place
to
of
cover the
that.
full amount of the down payment.
Right.
So that $2,000 that they have in escrow, remember we talked about that the deposit is always a part of what? The down payment.
Mm-hmm.
And if the down payment is being fully financed, then whatever they put in escrow has to be
It's credited
refunded.
back to it, right.
Or they can close it, they can use it towards any fees, or whatever the case might be, right? They're gonna pay for their closing costs out of their pocket, they don't wanna use down payment assistance program for their closing costs, they can pay it out of their pocket, right? So that's how that number works. Any questions on this? Go ahead, Carmen.
On the down payment assistance programs, aren't there programs where they don't have to pay it back?
It just depends on the source. That type of down payment assistance program is not a loan, it's a grant.
Right.
Okay, that wouldn't be an amount financed, it'll be free money. So this would be different. It wouldn't be amount financed. Right? It would be on the escrow documents, but it wouldn't be on the RPA. It would be a standard FHA grant program.
So
It's only one loan.
So grants are on escrow papers.
Yep.
Okay. Because right now B of A has one where they're giving away $15,000.
That's a grant. Yep, that's a grant.
For first-time home buyers.
Yeah, but trying to get financed with B of A is like pulling a freaking tooth out of a tiger's mouth. It's nearly impossible.
Really?
Oh, heck yeah.
Perfect
It is
scenario.
very tough to work with B of A.
It is, I have my escrow fund out with
Yep.
the other day.
Yeah.
Very tough. Any national bank is gonna be very tough. Because they follow guidelines to the T.
Right.
Versus a small direct lender, like the one I work with, Homebridge, right? You got an issue. Okay, the lender said, let's type up a letter of explanation. Boom, 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 boom. Get it signed by the clients, get it notarized, let's send this to the underwriter, see what they say. Underwriter sees it, okay, that makes sense, all right, approved. National banks don't have the flexibility. Hold on, I gotta take this call. This is George. Hello, this is George. Hey, how's it? Sure.
But if it's gonna be hard to give, but if it's not for what, to get first-time home buyers?
You know what, I've been teaching class all day long, and that's why I haven't answered, and I'm in the middle of class right now, but I wanted to answer your call, just to let you know, but when I should be done after 3 o'clock, I'll go ahead and follow it up with that. Okay? All right, thanks.
$15,000 is
Okay,
Mm-hmm, right.
are we good with this math piece? Okay, now let's say that it was $389, $987 all cash. Boom, it gets rid of everything else. All right, there's no amount, there's no loan, there's nothing. But it's not. Okay, let's move on to the second page. Additional, and so if you're gonna get, let's say that right now, we're gonna start seeing a lot of clients ask for what? Closing costs from the seller. And I'm starting to see this, agents being a little sneaky when it comes to that. So you could either click here. What is typically the closing cost on a file?
2 to 3%.
It's about 3%. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that. How do you find out exactly? Call the lender. Call the lender and find out, hey, Mr. Lender, how much money do we need for closing costs? Because here's the thing, they might not need a full 3%. And if you're asking for if Brandon submits an offer asking for 3% and Ivana submits an offer asking for 2%, and they both have high qualifying buyers, who do you think the seller's gonna go for? Bonds. He's gonna keep more money in his pocket. So it's better for you to ask the lender, how much money do you need to ask for so that you can submit a stronger offer? Does that make sense? Versus me putting, so what was our price? 389 what?
987.
987. 987 times 3%. All right? $11,699. So $11,699. That's 3%. a seller sees them, they're gonna be like, holy crap, they're asking for 11,000 bucks! Oh my God, they're crazy! Right? So this is what agents are doing now. I don't blame them. Seller to contribute 3% of contract price towards buyer's
Closing costs.
recurring
Oh.
and non-recurring
Closing.
closing costs. Why do you want to make sure you put in recurring and non-recurring? What do you guys think?
Because there's both in the,
You got both type of closing costs in a transaction.
right.
So if you just say towards buyer's closing costs, okay, which one? Which closing costs? What would be a recurring closing cost?
Tax.
Taxes. What else?
Insurance.
Insurance. Those happen what? They recur every year. You're recurring.
Uncle
What
Sam.
would be a non-recurring closing cost? Escrow fees, title fees, right? Recording fees, notary fees. Those are non-recurring. It happens only one time. So for your recurring and non-recurring closing cost, right? You want to make sure that you're specific. Because if you run into a maxi case, or you run into Jesus.
Maxi case is brutal.
Yes, she is.
She's good though.
She'll drive your contract to the specification that you set in the contract. Here's the thing, guys, always remember this. A contract is in favor, 90% of it is in favor of who? The buyer. What is the seller's responsibility then?
Counter.
What?
To counter?
No,
To fulfill it.
to enforce it.
Mm.
Okay, Mr. Buyer, I'll accept your terms. Perfect, let's go. Day 17, seller says, remove your contingencies. And the buyer says, I'm not ready. That's not what the contract says, Mr. Buyer. You say you're gonna remove your contingencies on day 17, so I'm expecting you to remove your contingencies. Right? So it is the seller's responsibility to enforce this agreement. Yes, this is meant for the buyer to place whatever terms they want. If the seller decides to accept it, then now his job is to enforce this agreement. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Right? So that's why the agreement is in favor of the buyer, but it allows the seller to enforce whatever terms they contractually agree to.
Right.
Go ahead.
George, going back to that statement that you said that a lot of agents are doing, what is the benefit of specifying recurring and non-recurring? Isn't it all just considered?
No.
It's not. So so I guess, can you give me an example of where, if by not putting that, you can not get their closing costs covered?
Okay, let's say that they get into, it all depends on the escrow company,
Right.
right? They want specification, because what if the closing cost is meant for whatever is just for the contract that doesn't reoccur, right? What if they're just gonna cover title, escrow fees, recording, notary fees and all that? Well, we got tax and insurance, yeah, but that's a recurring cost. We're gonna use this money just for a one-time fee with the fees that are right here, right now. Right? So that could be just considered the closing cost. But we wanna include the recurring fees also. So you wanna be specific. Always remember that in a contract, you wanna be very clear. Right? Very clear. That's why whenever you get, to example, and I'm moving a little bit of myself, you get to a report, you say, I want a termite. Okay. A termite is broken down into what? 2 sections. Section 1, responsibility according to the contract to the seller. Section 2, the buyer. We have the, okay, so this comes up, but you didn't specify anything else. All you said it was a termite. Okay. Here's a report, Mr. Buyer. Oh, there's damage. Okay. And what do you want me to do?
Got it.
Right? But if I specify, I want a pest inspection, a pest report. I don't have to specify what kind. It's already saying there, report.
Right.
Right? A pest section number 1 clear. My instruction, and it's now very clear as to what I want for my buyer. I'm telling them I want a pest inspection report with section number 1 clear. That means that if there is damage in section number 1, we expect the seller to take care of it.
So you
it's-
wouldn't need to negotiate repairs because they had already prior,
always remember, everything is negotiable in a contract.
right?
As long as the buyer and the seller agree to the terms, everything's negotiable.
But if this is already agreed on, when you send it and they sign, you execute the contract, when
Yeah.
the report comes back, let's say there
You're
is.
telling them that you want a clear report.
So it's
And if
not-
they can issue a clear report if there's damage.
Got it.
So they
The
have,
damage has to be repaired in order for the termite company to go back up and now give you a clear report. Right?
and George, and again, when we were just talking about the closing costs, but if you specified the 3% in a dollar amount, then regardless if it was recurring or non-recurring, if they have to eat up the dollar amount, then when they just add that to all the different costs that come associated, or they just say, again, because they're defining
Whatever
closing
money
costs.
is not used goes back to the seller.
Got it, okay,
It's the seller's money.
got it, okay.
Right? So if I'm gonna give you $10,000 and you only use 9 of it, you don't get to keep the extra $1,000.
Right, I got it.
It's my money.
Because it's specified for this, and if they define
Exactly.
closing costs as this,
Yep.
then you may lose out on the recurring.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
It goes back to the seller.
Gotcha.
Right? So, again, I go back to this part. Instead of asking for a specified number that equals a percentage, they are doing this. And now the seller doesn't see an actual number, and mentally, right, subconsciously is like, oh, it's only 3%. We'll do it. And then they see the extra number, like, oh, what the heck? 11,000? Well, you agreed to 3%, Mr. Seller?
Isn't
That's where a proactive agent like you guys, you specify that information prior to them accepting the offer. That's why it is so important that when you get your listing agent, you get an offer. I call on track and I send them the offer and I said, hey, Sochi, can you send me a seller's net sheet for this offer? Yeah, absolutely. Types up all the fees that are going to be incurred for that transaction based on this contract. And then I go present it. Contract numbers. This is how much money you're going to make. This is how much it's going to cost you. And then they look at it and they actually now have actual figures.
George,
Yeah.
you used the term sneaky. So sneaky is the fact that they didn't put the dollar.
I'm just going to stick it because that's the first thing that comes into my mind. Right? But they're not doing anything out of the ordinary because this is how we used to fill in the contract prior to this contract being created. Prior to the December 10th, 2021, this part right here was not on the previous contract. This is a new contract that just was launched last year. Right? So this is how we would specify, or you can actually specify an actual to contribute 10.
I guess you
The amount.
closing it, blanket statement.
$10,000 of contract right towards buyer's non-recurring closing costs.
Okay,
So my buddy Chris is one of our agents. He's in my downline, right? He had a property for sale. Right? It's an escrow on the west side over by Quartz Hill. He received an offer for $550,000, and the buyer was requesting a $20,000 seller credit. $20,000. And I looked at him like, holy crap, they're asking for 20 grand? And by law, we have to present every deal, or every offer. The property's been on the market 45 days. That's the only offer he got. He looked at it, he's like, we'll take it. I couldn't believe it. He gave him 20 grand for his closing costs. If everything gets used, then more power to the buyer, but if all of it doesn't get used, then whatever the difference is goes back to the seller. A lot of money. We're gonna start seeing a lot of creative, you might say, situations when it comes to getting deals closed.
So then that would allow the seller to not have to do a price reduction.
What do you mean?
If they had their price a little too high, if they give the buyer the 20,000, then they don't have to keep it on the market longer and reduce.
Well, they have no choice. I mean, if I'm a seller and my property's been on the market for 45 days, now I'm at a part where I'm desperate,
Right, right.
right? So, as a listing agent, it's very important, and the thing is that seller was chasing the market. Yeah, the property's worth $570,000, but who's willing to pay for it right now?
Right.
Right? There's a difference between value and what a person is willing to pay. Right? So if a person is not willing to pay what the property is worth, you're crap out of luck. So that's why it is very important to really pay attention to where the market is at, and now in this market as a listing agent, because you don't want to have your client chase the market. You want to make sure that you're pricing the property about anywhere between 10 to 20% under market value. Why? Because you want people to see it and make offers. And possibly the multiple offers that you're getting will drive the price back up to where the property is at value. Right? I mean, I'm doing that. My investor, we put one on the east side of 52nd and Avenue S 2 weeks ago. And he said, "What do you think we should put it?" I said, $379.9. He said, "I was thinking more $410." I said, "It's worth $410." I said, "But who's going to give you $410 right now?" And he's like, "You know what, George, you're right." He's like, "Let's put it on the market for $379.9. Put it on the market, we got 405 for it. It's all strategy.
Right.
Right? We got 3 offers on that property the very weekend we went on the market. Right?
And George, when she was specifying a little bit about the sales price, about instead of negotiating as the buying agent or making the offer, instead of having the seller reduce the price, she would ask for money back in closing to keep more money in the buyer's pocket. I've been hearing a lot of agents say something of that nature.
Repeat it again.
So instead of saying that the house is $400,000, but I as the agent think that it's a little bit overpriced, instead of coming in and offering like $380, we'll offer the $400, but go into inspections and try to get money back in the buyer's pocket during closing costs. Or with
I see.
closing costs. Like a strategy instead of
You're gonna get. I actually did that on another one. So what I did? So the property, I have it listed in Lake LA for $379,900. My client's number is $400K. Right? We get an offer at this price asking $11,500 in closing. Very specific. Right? My client was already advertising a $2,000 interest rate seller credit towards the buyer's interest rate, right? So that's $2,000 already that the buyer's gonna get automatically. And then he said, let's give the agent a motivation and give him $1,000 also. Okay? This is the only one that's being advertised.
right.
We're not advertising this yet.
Right.
This is just a threshold that I have to be able to say, hey, is your client making an offer or they're still undecided? Well, I'll tell you what, if they make an offer, we'll give you $2K towards your closing costs and I'll give you $1,000 commission bonus.
Ooh, nice.
So now we're at $3,000. Right? It's freaking marvelous. So now we're at $3,000 that's guaranteed to go towards the purchase of this.
Okay.
So what we did, I said, okay, we already have a $3,000 credit that we're planning on using, right, Mike? Yeah. Okay, so let's take $3,000 away from here. So that makes it 005. That's 95, right? 9,500. So what we did, we took 9,500, we added it to that number. So we actually raised the price by $9,500 to get them their 11,500.
You raise the price, the amount that you're gonna
Exactly.
pay.
I subtracted the $3,000 credit that he already had in place.
Yeah, that one kind of went over my head a little bit.
You know what, that's good, I like that.
Yeah.
So the house was originally listed, you had it listed at the $379?
$379.9, they're asking for $11,500.
So you
Back.
add, you add,
In
closing costs.
concessions.
And concession.
Yes. I already have $3,000 credit on the table that my client gave me to use.
Right.
So they're asking for 11.5, let's apply that $3,000 to that 11.5, that leaves us with $9,500 that additional that they need.
But why did you add it back into to make the property higher?
Because now we're financing that 9,500. You want me to give you 9,500? Offer me more.
Got it. Now it's financed.
So we countered them at a price $9,500 more than what their contract said,
Right.
and we gave them the 11.5.
That
And they're like,
was
you think the property will appraise? I sent him comps all day long. He's like, okay, we'll take it. Cool.
So
Yeah, so they didn't have to come to the table with less.
So my client is not, the only thing that my client is losing at this point,
$3,000.
coming out of pocket, is $3,000.
Yeah.
Oh, because you're coming from the, okay, I get
Yeah.
it. You're protecting your seller, that's why it was good for the seller. I get it, that's why I was confused.
Yeah, he counted with the higher.
So what does that make you look? Like a
Good.
freaking rock star.
You're
Yeah,
a rock star.
And he's a
yeah.
simple mathematician, this is simple tactics.
but how did the buyer didn't really benefit on that then, right?
Yeah, because now they're getting their full 11.5 because this 11.5 is only gonna cost them about $100 more on their freaking mortgage. I called the lender prior to doing this and I said, hey, I see that you sent me a pre-qualifier at 380, does the buyer have more room to go up? He's like, yeah, we got some room. I said, thank you.
Wiggle room.
Okay.
I verified it before I even countered them with this, because if he would have said, no, they're maxed out, this couldn't happen. But I know for a fact that they qualify for more than 380, right? So since I know that they can afford it, what's the worst thing they can say? Yeah, we can't do that. And they counter us.
And how did you know that they qualified because you had the pre-approval?
I had the pre-approval, no, I had a pre-approval for 380. Only $100 more than what they offered. But I called the lender and say, hey, do they have extra room? She's like, yeah, they can go all the way up to 410. Perfect.
Yeah.
But the buyer though, as me as a buyer and agent, I sent you the offer and I'm asking for the $11,000 credit. I'm assuming me as the agent is looking out for my buyers to say, I want $11,000 to apply to closing costs for it to come less out of their pocket or maybe an interest rate buy down.
Sure.
But when you counter back and then you add it back into the selling price of the home, it saves your seller, but me as the buying agent, where do my clients get the benefit of maybe not having to come out of pocket for closing costs?
Because now they're getting an opportunity to get an offer accepted, they're still getting the amount of money that they need to close, right? Even though they're gonna have to pay for it, we're not giving it to them.
Yeah, but the amount of money that they need to close with, like, so if they're asking for the 11,000, they maybe wanted that to take care of some closing costs for them to come out of pocket less. But by putting it back in, they're gonna have to pay that closing cost.
100%.
Right, so you won on your side, but on the other side, that's what I was thinking.
But the buyers end up financing it.
They're just financing it, in other words.
Yeah, but they still have to come out for the closing costs, because I'm assuming them asking for that, they were trying to maybe not have to come out of pocket for so much money
And here's the thing.
for down payment. I mean,
You go, typically 90% of the time, you ask for this amount of money at closing costs, they're gonna tell you, add it to the loan.
They do. I had that
They're gonna
happen.
say add it to the
Add to the loan.
Right.
You want me to give you 10 grand out of my pocket? Add it to the loan, you're not gonna get it for free.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, so yeah, and
But
so I
if
guess
you
that
were-
buyer has to just come out and he's not gonna be able to get that, so they're gonna have to, they get the
If
3,000.
they don't have the money available, what are they gonna do?
Yeah, they can't, you're right.
Okay.
But they are getting it. They are getting
How are they
it.
getting
They're
it?
just financing.
They're financing it.
They're getting it, but it's being financed.
It's
So
just
let's
being
say-
added to the
So
loan.
let's say I wanna buy your house for
So here's the way it's being financed. We're raising the price that they're offering so that the final number for my client still stays. If we were to get an offer at
So
this,
he can net,
without this.
yeah. So he can net what he really wants
He's
to.
gonna end up netting the original number that he wanted without having to come out of pocket because they're gonna finance their own closing costs. We're just adding it to the loan. So since you're giving me more money for the property, okay, I'll give you back.
Yeah.
I'll give you the money.
Okay, got it,
Because my net's not gonna change.
got it,
I'm good.
got it.
Make sense?
Yeah.
I had that happen. They countered, we accepted, but they ended up saying if the appraisal comes back less, we're gonna take the difference from your closing.
Oh, you have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I put that stipulation all the time.
Right.
Closing costs will be based on the appraised value if appraised value is lower than contract price. So that means that 11.5
Difference.
goes down.
Right.
So your client has to.
And it has to be that way because their closing costs gonna be less. They're financing less.
Yeah.
If you get into that.
Oh, that
situation.
makes sense too, I didn't think about it like
Yeah.
that.
Of
Yeah.
course. Any questions?
The buyer,
Ron, Rana, you guys get it?
Yeah.
the buyer has the right to say no to the counter,
The buyer has the right to, everybody has the right to say no to the
Right.
counters.
so if they don't like the.
A seller has the right to say no to this, the original offer. No, rejected, sign page 16, we're done. We don't want to, I don't even want to consider it. Again, by law, we have to present it. But you as the agent, obviously you have a fiduciary duty to do what? To protect your client, and on the selling side, it's to make them the most money.
Right,
So you figure out, how do we do that?
you're creative.
Figure out the numbers.
Makes sense?
All right, okay. So the next part, H1, verification of all cash, sufficient funds. So I want to verify, if this was a regular, let's say that this wasn't a Cal Halfa, this was just a standard FHA, right?
You changed it to other again.
Verification of cash, attached to the offer, or 3 days after the acceptance, or 10 days. Whatever, you can change this to whatever days fit your client's needs, but by default it's 3 days. Within 3 days, you have to show verification of this money and this money. Typically, we actually show verification when we submit the offer. So we're going to submit, when we submit the RPA, we're submitting this package that we have on the screen. We're going to submit their pre-qualification letter. We're going to submit their proof of funds, wherever their money is, that this money is coming from. And we're going to be submitting the DU, the desktop underwriting report. Why is it so important to do the DU? I will not, if I have a buyer that comes pre-qualified, I call the lender, hey, I need a DU for this offer. Oh, we can't generate them. I'll go back to the buyer and say, you gotta find another lender. Right? Because the DU explains all their ratios, it explains their DTI, it explains their credit, any debt that they might have, it explains everything. That means that the lender actually inputted the information. Right? So that I know that he verified this information. He just didn't be like, oh, you make how much? Oh yeah, based on that, yeah, you qualify here. Let me send you a pre-qual letter, hold on. There you go. And they've never verified anything. When they send me the DU, I know for a fact that they actually checked the information. So I know that they are qualified.
Right.
Because there's many cases where a lender just does that. He has a template, he puts the number, the name, here. And then you guys accept an offer, you get it to escrow, and then through escrow we find out, damn, these people don't qualify. Just wasted everybody's time.
Yeah.
All right? So I always require a DU. As a matter of fact, let me show you. House has alarm. This is my notes. Agent remarks. House has alarm. Text agent with business card for code. Please make sure to alarm and lock up when done. Email offers to jperez661@gmail.com. Complete with pre-qual package, DU, and proof of fund. If the DU is not included, owner will not review your offer.
Wow, that's good.
I want to see the DU. I want to know what kind of ratios you're working with. Because remember, you get the whiteboard. And I've done this before with you guys, but we have some new agents in here that I like for them to see this.
So always after the DU
Yep.
on your MLS.
You get into multiple offers. Buyer 1. Yeah, buyer 2. Okay? Buyer 1 has 700 credit score.
Quite cool.
Okay? Buyer 2 has 6 640 FICO. Okay? Buyer 1 has a DTI of 47%.
Ooh.
DTI for buyer number 2 is 36%. Buyer number 1, that's their DTI. They're both FHA. Okay? In this scenario, this guy has way better credit, right? But based on this, who's the better buyer?
This guy.
Why?
Because
Their debt
He's
is
under
lower.
his
Less,
threshold.
less debt.
less than.
Okay? This guy might be at a DTI because even though he has great credit, his DTI is high, his credit is good because why? He's making all his payments on time and they're probably all minimums. $25 here, $25 there on all his credit. Right? This person has lower credit score. They might have some bad history, but their DTI is very low. That means that they have more money available. So when it comes to having multiple offers on a deal, this is what you're looking for. And the DU has this number.
What would flip that? Would maybe down payment size? Maybe?
That could do it. What if this guy's doing $100,000 down payment, and this guy's only doing his 3.5%? Because even though he's doing $100K, you can still go FHA.
Right,
3.5% is just the minimum.
right.
Then that would change. Because here's the thing. Let's say that the house, let's say it's $300,000. This is an example. Right? This guy is going to have to finance more money. Right? This guy just put $100,000 down, so now he's only financing $200K. We already automatically know that we're not going to have a problem with the appraisal. Automatically. Because there's automatically $100,000 worth of what? Equity. Right?
Right.
And that $200,000 loan might be okay working out.
So in that sense, you would be like,
Yeah,
this
but
guy
if they're
is a
just
little
doing a regular 3.5%, this guy's a better buyer.
better. Yeah. Got it.
So that's why the DU is so important, especially when you have multiple offers. Because you're now, based on the DU, you're going to find out who the better qualifying buyer is and who has a better chance at closing this deal. Right? Because the last thing you want is to waste freaking 25 days come to find out that this guy just doesn't qualify. Even though the numbers, they verified everything, his debt just grew. This thing just went to 48%. Now he doesn't qualify. Because at 47 is the max.
They're trying to get you outside for bold.
For both.
For
sign up.
video or something.
Is this making sense?
Yeah.
Does this make sense online? Perfect. Perfect.
Oh, I don't like.
Okay. So let's go back to the contract. We got about 20 minutes left, maybe 15. Okay, verification of down payment and closing costs, same thing. Verification of loan application is going to be obviously your loan pre-qual package, right? So as a listing agent, you get an offer, you're going to verify what that pre-qual letter says by calling the lender. Find out what the lender is doing. How many deals have they closed? How many times have they used this program? I can tell if a lender is sending me a whole bunch of bull over the phone or if they're not. Just by the conversation that I have, saying this guy has no clue what the hell he's doing. Right? You want to make sure, because here's the thing, you go back, if you're a listing agent, you go back to your client, you want to make sure that you verified everything because the client is going to have questions. Mr. Client, Mr. Seller, I actually called this agent, this is the information that I got on this one, this is what I got on this one, and this is what I got on this one. Which one do you want to choose? Why is it so important? Because what is our job? It's to educate our clients. Right? Our job is not to make decisions. Our job is to bring options to the table and allow our clients to make what? An educated decision. Right? An educated decision. So that's why it's so important. Then we get into, we're not gonna talk about this, or the vital verification condition of property, 5 days prior to the close of escrow. So this is your final visit to the property before you close escrow. We call this a verification of the property, or verification of property, your final walkthrough. Why is this so important, and why should you do it if you're working with buyers?
Make sure the home is still in the same condition from when they first saw it.
In the same or better condition, right? So where does the or better fall into place?
Repairs.
Repairs.
Yeah.
So if you got repairs requested and completed, you want to make sure that you go and inspect those repairs, right? But let's say that the repair was plumbing or an electrical issue up in the attic. How are you going to inspect that?
Do you call back your inspector?
No. How do you verify that those repairs were done in the attic?
Invoices.
Exactly. You always request invoices for those repairs. So whenever you're going to request a repair to be done, mind you, a seller has the right to do repairs on their own home, right? So in your request for repairs, you always say repairs to be done by a certified professional contractor or repair person, right? Because you want them to, Brian, here's the invoice for the repair. And you want to make sure you add that to your file, right? A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I got repaired, and they never did anything. Right? So you want to make sure that you protect your client, you protect yourself, because it does carry liability. All right, and then we fall into the contingencies, and we're just going to talk about these contingencies as the last thing for today's lesson, because I think we're probably going to run out of time. So contingencies, what are contingencies? What did you guys remember from real estate school? We talked about this. Yvonne, Mariana, Dylan. Jen, were you one of my students in real estate school? You were. Sassy, you were, right?
No.
Brandon?
It's pretty much a.
You guys aren't part of my crowd.
If I remember right, especially.
I know Misty was and Tanya was.
So if I remember right, especially because I went through this process too. So
Right.
pretty much you sign a contingency saying you're ready to go to the next step.
Right. So a contingency period, in layman's terms, protects the buyer's money. Okay? The deposit that you guys initially did at the beginning, right? This deposit of $4,500, right? You're using it as what? As collateral. So to give you the opportunity to do what? To fulfill the contingencies. And if you're happy, then you remove your contingency right and move on, right? But the contingencies is something that's super important. So by default, as you guys can see, there's 17 days contingency period on the buyers, for the buyer's benefit, to perform the items that are going to be required. In this case, loan. What does that mean? That means that by day 17, the loan has to have full loan approval, right? It means that by day 17, you would have completed an appraisal. By day 17, you would have completed a property inspection. By day 17, you would have reviewed all seller documents. What would be seller documents? Disclosures, right? Preliminary title report, you would have reviewed that by day 17. Common interest disclosures, if those apply to the property or the actual transaction. Sale of buyer's property would be what situation? Sale of buyer's property.
Contingency for them to sell their property before they buy it.
Correct. So let's say that Ariana is the person selling the house, and if Yvonne comes to her and says, hey, I'll buy your house, but let me let you know that I'm actually selling mine, and I need to sell mine to buy yours. That is sale of buyer's property. And we use a COP, right? That is a disclosure. What is a COP? Let's add it. Let's go read it.
George, question. 17 days from when the offer was accepted or from when escrow opens? I always forget.
From when the offer is executed.
Okay.
What does executed mean?
Signed by the seller?
All parties have signed. All parties, not just the seller. All parties. Okay? Contingency for sale of buyer's property. Right? That means that Yvonne is providing this document specifying that she's either entering into a contract, she's actually entering into a escrow, whatever the case might be specified in this document, right? So if the seller is okay with these terms, then they'll go ahead and move forward, right? If you're I always tell people that are buying contingent, we do not go look for a house until what? Until yours is in escrow. Why?
Because anything happens.
Makes your offer stronger to put down.
Anything can happen, yes, but there's something it's something very important.
They'll be stuck with 2 mortgage?
Say again?
They'll be stuck with 2 mortgage?
Nope, that's not the reason. There's no buying power.
Okay, so how
So again, makes the offer.
So if Yvonne makes an offer on Ariana's house, her house is not sold. She's depending on the sale of her house to buy this one. If her house hasn't sold, how can she buy that one? There's no buying power, right? The moment that Yvonne's put her house in escrow, we actually have an executed contract. That means that she can now show that she is making money to Ariana. Hey Ariana, I'm making this much money, I want to buy your house. Okay, that works, let's do it. Why? Now there is a contractual agreement on her part to sell her house, and we know for a fact that the percentages are higher to be able to close on this one. Because if she didn't have her house for sale and it wasn't for escrow, and Ariana by default gives her 20 days, that's what the contract says, to put that house on the market, and somebody else sees Ariana's house and say, hey, I'll make this offer, well, she can't accept it because she has an executed contract with Yvonne. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I guess with the potential buyer, their hesitation may be, what if my home sells before I find another home? But that's just the risk that you have to take.
There's a contingency period,
Oh, you want
and you're going to specify in the contract, right?
of the sale of your home.
So you make an offer on Ariana's house, right? You have a house to sell. Yours is in escrow. You have 20 days to identify a property, get it to escrow, okay? But in your listing, in your contract, and your counter to the buyer that's buying your house, you say this house or this transaction is contingent upon me finding another home.
Oh, got it.
You're protecting your client,
Got it.
right? That's why it's so important to work with somebody who knows what the heck they're doing.
Right.
Right? Because those play a big part. Because if you don't have that contingency in place, and guess what? Your sale closes and you're still not done over here, you better get the hell out.
Or you could do what my seller did. They did a counteroffer where they asked to rent the house for like a month in case they're never to close escrow by the time they sold.
So you would have to put, so what is the difference? Okay, thanks for bringing that up, by the way, right? If you need extra time, you gotta make it contractual, right? So you're gonna do what's called an SIP, a seller in possession.
Right.
Now, if the SIP is 29 days or less, it becomes what?
License.
A license.
A license.
Why is it called a license?
If you revert at any time.
It could be revoked at any time,
Right.
right? So let's say that Yvonne gets her license. She says, I need 2 weeks, 14 days. And then Yvonne's there for 16 and she's just not, I'm not done yet, I need more time. That's not what we agreed to, Yvonne. That new owner can actually call the sheriff's department and get her kicked out. It's a license, it's revocable. But if Yvonne says, I need 30 days, that is now over 29 days. What does that create?
It's a lease.
A lease. And now a lease has to be signed between Yvonne and the other side.
And they
So
have to
if-
go to eviction.
And now if Yvonne doesn't leave within the time specified, they can't kick her out. It can't be revoked. She now has to go through an eviction process.
And that depending on the time of when it happens with the market and what have you, that can be like almost 6 months.
Could be. It just took me friggin' 8 months to do an eviction in Rosemont, Kern County, right? So again, it's all how you specify the contract, depending on the needs of the client. And again, everything's negotiable in this business as long as a buyer agrees and the seller agrees. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back to the contract. Let's go back to the contingencies so we can finish up that part, and I'll let you guys go. You've been in here for 2 hours. Doesn't seem that long, huh?
No,
It's
doesn't.
just, there's information, I mean, you could go on days breaking down this contract. There's so much to go over in such a small period of time when you're explaining it and the questions and all that stuff, okay? So, again, this is what the buyer has to complete these items. Possession, time of possession upon recording. So if we record at 9 in the morning, the buyer has the right to take possession of the property, unless otherwise specified, right? Or you specify an actual time. Seller occupied or vacant units, obviously this is multiple unit situation. Documents and fees, seller delivery of documents is what? We said it already.
Disclosure.
Disclosures, or any seller documents. The seller has 17 days to make this happen. So if they have 7 days, how many days does that leave the buyer to review them?
10.
10, right? So what I do as a proactive listing agent, the moment that I sign the contract for the list, I get disclosures ready. And I give them a brief explanation and I leave them with the client so they can sign them. So by the time we go on the market and we get into escrow, all that has been signed and delivered, right? So Ariana, here's the seller disclosures, it's day 0. She gets a full 17 days.
Right.
That way, when I go on day 15 with a notice to perform for her client to remove their contingencies, there's no excuses. You had 17 full days.
Which is probably most have.
Yes. That's why it's so important to be a proactive agent and get these documents over, because you want to do what? Even the playing field.
When you receive the disclosures, can you technically like try to negotiate anything on the disclosures, or is it just for your knowledge?
What do you mean negotiate?
Like, I don't know, anything that's odd. Like, let's say someone died and they were telling you.
What are you gonna do? Freaking negotiate a casket or what?
Would you negotiate, like, can you negotiate anything, or will you just back out?
You mean if you're
Disclosure
the buyer
there.
agent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You just back out?
The disclosure is just letting, hey, these are the terms of my house. Do you want to move right or not?
Got it.
You're just disclosing information that you know.
But like she was saying, if she's the buyer's agent representing a buyer, they get those seller disclosures and they happen to see some died. That's their right then to not remove the contingency.
That's
walk
their right
away.
to cancel if they're not gonna move forward.
Right.
That's what the disclosure are for, is to allow the buyer to read upon what the seller is disclosing so that they can make a decision whether to move forward or not.
And then I guess in that sense, if that was something like that, and then I guess it's always negotiable. The buyer can come back and say, oh, I want 10,000 off because someone died. And if the seller agrees, then that's just an addendum.
That's not a reason to give a discount.
Well, I know, but I was just.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Right.
I get it. Sign in and return escrow holder provision instructions. So that's what? Your escrow documents, right? Time to pay HOA fees if the HOA applies. Install smoke alarm, CO2 detectors, water heater bracing. They have 7 days to complete that. I would highly advise you that these things be in place before you even go in the market. So as a listing agent, right? You got a listing contract signed. You're gonna walk through the property and and inspect. Okay, we need these, Mr. Seller. We're gonna have a home inspection. We're gonna have an appraisal. Please have these items corrected so we don't have any hiccups. Right? Not only that. This is California state law. It's mandatory that the house have this. And evidence of representative authority if this is if it's either in an LLC or an entity owns it, such as a trust. Any questions? A lot of info, huh? And that's just what?
Page 2.
Page 2 of the RPA.
We did 2 pages in 2 hours?
Yes.
Wow.
Woo!
2 hours and
Those are the
2
most
pages.
important pages at the beginning.
Page number 1 through 4. Okay? I'm gonna highly advise you, if you have access to this, print out a copy, read the whole thing. Anything that you don't understand, highlight it, bring it to the next class. Okay? That way you guys are learning as you guys are taking classes as well. Next week, once we go through page number 3 and 4, I'll give you guys a buyer scenario so you guys can start actually filling this in. Email it to me so I can correct it and we'll go from there. Good? Any questions? Any input?
You did a good
Feedback?
job. Good job.
Thank you. All right, guys. It is 5 minutes before 3. I'm gonna let you guys go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's help productive the rest of the week. And let's rock and roll, baby!
Thank you, George.
All right. right, see you guys.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
And you